Hello, everyone. Ooh, I got a response. Nice. Yeah. No. Yeah. So, thank you, Tris, for the wonderful introduction. My name is Darryl. I am the lead engineer and also owner of my own company, which is called DAS Software Limited. And today, I'm going to be here to talk to you all about how to build for multiple Apple platforms. Before I do that, I want to share with you a brief story about how I actually learned about this subject. And in order to do that, I need to take you all the way back to October 2015. So, in October, back in 2015, Apple had just released their first Apple TV that supported an app store. I've been working on iOS for a couple of years. I saw the transition from Objective-C to Swift. And when I saw this new platform come out, I was like, right, this could make for like a really good side project. And this is something that I wanted to do. The idea that I had at the time, because Christmas was just about to come around the corner, was, do you remember when you used to put on, a TV or used to go on YouTube and you had those endless kind of fireplace videos just burning in the background? I was like, that's the app I want to make for people to download just for Christmas. So what I ended up with after a couple of weeks was this app called Christmas Chill. It took me a few times to get there. I had a few rejections from Apple during the approval process. Things like, app icon sizes and other things that had a bit of back and forth between the reviewers. But by the time I managed to do that, I got it approved. And it was ready for Christmas, and I felt, like I'd achieved something personally. I had a really nice side project that I could iterate on and build on. So this happened over the years, between 2016 and 2022. I had small updates each winter just to keep my hands within the world of iOS. I added new support for different versions of Apple TV, tvOS. I used to update Swift every now and then. And I also used to add new videos, new content, new audio tracks, that sort of thing. Every now and then, I was thinking, how could I take this further? I did try to consider adding support for iPads, iPhone, that sort of thing. But every time I'd sit down and actually think about it, I'd think, it's just not the right experience for me. Like, I wanted that big screen kind of experience, nice warm and fire as you were sitting, opening Christmas presents, enjoying a mulled wine, that sort of thing. So I was like, no, this isn't for me. Jumping forward to June 2023, Apple announced the Apple Vision Pro. And alongside that, they also made some amazing announcements for SwiftUI, where they actually begin to support using the code that you've built to work along multiple platforms. When I heard that, I was like, right, there's something interesting here for me. I need to revisit this idea, and that's what I did. So when it came to December, I spent some time upgrading from UIKit to SwiftUI. I had a real bunch of upgrades I had to make, so I had to go from ripping out storyboards, I had to rip out IB outlets, I had to rip out all that sort of stuff. And by the end of it, I had an app that more or less ran on SwiftUI. I had to use a few UI view representables just to make sure that the video player worked. But on the whole, I'd done a full migration, and I was quite happy again. So I thought, right, okay, another personal goal achieved. I'm just going to leave this now, enjoy the Christmas, and then I'll come back to it. This is a slide of me ripping out that code in December. Yep, just quite a very, again, just something that I digged through my Git repository. It's kind of like a treasure trove of history that I've been working on this app for. And yeah, again, just a real nice achievement to be able to do. So spin on to after Christmas at 2024. Apple were going to release the Apple Vision Pro in February. I had a real good base to work from, but I was like, I don't want to quite release a Christmas app in February because just doesn't seem right. So I was like, right, how do I get a working app that's going to match the seasons, but I can still use the same code base without having to make too many tweaks? So now that I've told you the story of how I actually got here, I'm going to give you a few tips now on how to actually do it for yourself. The first thing that I had to do was I had to update my Xcode target to add supported destinations. So what do I mean by that? So what you can do in Xcode, so taking my app as an example, you can take the first target that you created. That will support the original destination that you've created, which is the Apple TV, in my case. But then you can actually go in and go, well, actually, I want to support the Apple Vision Pro. I want to support iOS. I want to support macOS, if that's what you want to do. Completely up to you. It's your app. So that's only part of the puzzle, however, because once you've done that, you also need to start looking at your code and like what kind of changes that you need to make. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, because it gets quite tricky. This is a quick video of how to actually add the supported destination. So what I'm doing here is I'm choosing the Apple Vision Pro in the general settings. You get a little warning here that says you need to make sure that you make source code changes as well. You click on it, you go, yep, okay, I get that. And it's literally as simple as that. It's 30 seconds. You've just added a new destination to your Xcode project. Nice and simple. So the next part of the puzzle is actually using SwiftUI to your advantage. So like I mentioned earlier, Apple made a big announcement about SwiftUI being multi-platform ready. And in many ways, it really is. So what you may not know is SwiftUI actually, in its internals, will use the correct components depending on what platform that you're supporting. So for instance, if you build for tvOS, you'll get behavior that matches tvOS. If you build for Vision OS, you'll get Vision OS type components that match and work the way you would expect for a headset. And similar if you did it for macOS, you'd get a macOS kind of experience with the components. The great part about this is SwiftUI takes away all the hard work that you've got to do when you're trying to work amongst these different platforms. So you can focus more on actually building the behavior of your app. So you don't really have to worry about all these deep level implementations. You can just go, I want to build an app that does this. It works on this platform, that platform. And that's really all you have to worry about. So what I've got here on these slides is a really, really brief example. So this is a component that basically has one button on that has a label that says it's going to be a refresh button. It has a little bit of padding. But the magic happens when you start to actually use this code across different platforms. So if we were to try and build this for tvOS, for instance, you'd get a really simple screen like this, where the refresh button appears. It's kind of like got a white background with black text. It's got a nice rounded radius for the border. But what happens if you try to create that for the Apple Vision Pro? What happens if we try to compile it for this platform? So as you can see, the button here has actually changed the background color, and it's actually changed the text color as well. So it's not black, it's white. And that's literally what SwiftUI has decided to do. I haven't changed any of these kinds of properties. This is SwiftUI going, oh, I need to work on Vision OS now. I'm going to change these because it better matches the platform. Really smart thinking from Apple. I don't have to think about any of this kind of stuff if I don't want to. I can just get on with building my app. Coming back to what I said earlier about you having to worry about source code changes. This is what you get if you try to build your app on a platform that may not necessarily support the APIs that you're using. So what I've got here is a window group that's showing a video list. But what I've also got as well is I've got two modifiers that show actually, I may want to be able to resize the window. The problem with this is if you're trying to run this on the Apple TV, you don't actually have the power to resize the window because for the TV experience, you get a full-size TV experience. You don't want to resize it like it's on a laptop, or in the case of the Vision Pro, you can't resize windows, which is where this comes in. So how do we solve this? The answer comes in this form, Swift conditional compilation. So what this is this is a way that Swift allows you to actually decide which code runs on which platforms. You may have heard about this using the availability APIs. So if you've used available on iOS version 14, iOS 26, it's the similar kind of syntax, but it works a little bit differently than you might expect. So what I've got here is me trying to conditionally compile the code across different platforms. So I've got my main entry point into the app. But if you look at the body, you can see I've got this if OS, TV OS kind of language. At the bottom, it's else if Vision OS. And what this is basically instructions to Xcode that says, if you see this statement and you're building for TV OS, make sure that you compile this part of the code. If I'm trying to build for Vision OS, I don't want this part of the code to be built. I want this one that has the window resizability because I want that experience on Vision OS. You can actually get quite clever with this if you really want. Here, I've actually condensed those two statements. So now I'll always have a window group. But if I wanted to only have the modifiers working for Vision OS, you can kind of put that in between the statements as well. So you can actually clean up the code as you go. You can also use it for important frameworks as well. So if you have a certain framework that will only really suit working on the Vision Pro, you can decide to import that only for that target. If instead you wanted to not use this on tvOS, that's completely fine. All you need to do is just make sure you wrap it in this can import statement, and then Xcode will do the rest. It'll check, is this framework available to use for this platform? And if not, it won't import it at all. The other thing that you can do, if you go into the build phases, is you can actually start to conditionally compile files depending on the platform. So if you see here on the right, you have all this kind of drop downs here for each file. If you click on that, you get this little drop down that allows you to select any supported platform if you want your code for that file to be available across all of them. Or if you prefer, you can only compile it, again, for certain platforms. And again, Xcode will help you do that. This is really useful if you've got certain features that you want to only work on Vision OS, or if you wanted something else that worked on the Apple TV, you can choose that as well. Or again, if you're choosing to work on macOS, iPadOS, iOS, the options are endless. It all depends on what you, as a developer, need to achieve in terms of the features and behavior for your apps. So this gives us a real powerful tool for us as developers to start to customize that experience. And that's really important because we want to make sure that our apps leverage the full power of each platform. So I go back to the beginning of my talk. I didn't really want my app to work on iOS, iPadOS, because it didn't feel like the right experience for me. But using SwiftUI and conditional compilation, I can make sure that if I ever did decide that in the future, I can make sure that the code that I've been using will make sure it compiles, but B, I can also customize the UI for that experience as well. The thing that I thought was really important when I tried to improve this project for the Vision Pro is being able to really leverage how the Apple Vision Pro was able to just like really take the code, compile it, but also really make sure it worked in a way that was really unique to the headset. Like, I wouldn't really want a Vision OS platform experience on the tvOS app, and likewise, I wouldn't want that for the Apple Vision Pro. So using conditional compilation, you can make sure that you can tailor that for the right experience, ideal for the big picture experience on the Apple TV, or if you want a bit of more of an immersive experience, you can use it for the Vision Pro as well. So here's a few examples of how the app works on the Apple TV. So you see I've got this list view on the left. I've got this preview image on the right. And as you scroll through the list, this image will update, and it's making the full use of the screen. If I build this on the Vision Pro, however, the screen completely changes. And this is something I've customized only for this platform. So as you can see, I've got this window that works right in the middle of the screen, in the middle of the room. You have this title, image kind of view, and it really takes up the window that I give it. I don't necessarily want to have a list that's floating in front of me because it doesn't really feel immersive. It feels more like, actually, that should be on the TV. So I want to go back to what I was talking about at the beginning. What happens in 2024. So using all those tips that I gave, I was able to create a new app, which I called Ocean Chill, which was a bit more summery, spring kind of vibes. It used the majority of the same code. I had to maybe add a few more assets, a few more images to make it a bit more beachy kind of feel. The app was submitted, and it was approved for the Apple Vision Pro release, which I was quite proud of. So that was all good, but what really was the kicker for me was a couple of weeks after, I got an email from Susan Prescott, who's the VP of Worldwide Developer Relations at Apple, to celebrate the release of the Apple Vision Pro, but also just to say thank you for submitting an app for the very first release of the Apple Vision Pro, which I was quite happy about. What this told me was people who push the boundaries, who want to try something new, people are watching to see who can do that. And it kind of relates to what Tris was saying at the very beginning of this evening. We're living in very different times at the moment in tech, where there's a lot of people who are experimenting with the likes of AI, and experiment with new ways of doing things. So if you're working on something that's a side project, or maybe you're working on something that's in your day-to-day work, and you think, actually, this may be a really good idea, I'd highly encourage you to take that up, work with people who can help you achieve that goal, and ultimately push the ideas, because people do recognize people who push the boundaries, and trying to do that in a way that is going to help you and the people around you, it will take you further. I feel like it has for my own personal career. So I'm just about to wrap up my talk now, but if you go away and you're looking for these slides, there's a couple of links that I will leave you with. The first 2 pages are from the Apple developer page. They're really good ways to do the stuff that I've just spoke about adding multi-platform app functionality, running code on specific platforms. I also wrote a blog post which kind of talks about this stuff, but in a written form, if you're interested in reading about it. And if you want to try the apps that I've been working on for the past 10 years, I highly encourage you to look at these links, as you can get them on the App Store and try them out for yourself. Thank you for your time. If you want to connect with me, please scan the QR code. Otherwise, if you want to connect with me on social media, you can find me at Darryl Bayliss. Thank you.